getting the blonde wig right now, like wearing the high heels and dress are on order. Mel and everything like that. Yeah, Mel will go with Summer.
Start with the old faithful stuff.
You know, my marathon days were over. I run a couple, and
Come here, please.
might be able to do a half, but again,
Steve, come here, please.
for what half? I've done the Pittsburgh Marathon, but I just my knees and stuff can't take the amount of training it would do to be ready to do that. Right. So like I said, I've done a couple. I can scratch them off my bucket list. So point of board docs. Hey Mike, why do we have printing?
We've had problems this week. Program in Southwest, so we came up with that. Okay.
Okay. I was gonna say, this is to avoid this.
In case it decides to go Southwest again.
Okay.
That's all.
Then anything would have to go sideways.
Oh, no, we had to turn down. I got a good one.
7 p.m. having arrived and passed. Apologies for our tardiness. I call to order the agenda-setting meeting for the Woodland Hills School Board for April 2019. Ms. Gigliotti, will you call the roll?
Mr. Graves.
Present.
Mrs. Ellison.
Present.
Mr. Hanchett.
Here.
Mrs. Curry.
Here.
Dr. Hildebrand.
Here.
Mrs. Crossman.
Here.
Mr. Belmont.
Here.
Ms. Glasser.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next week, we will accept the minutes for the March agenda and legislative meetings. The board met in executive session this evening to discuss legal, school safety, and personnel matters. Mr. Harris, do you have announcements?
Yes, I have a couple. On April 24th at the Woodland Hills Junior Senior High School Library, we'll have a presentation on safety in the streets, which is a presentation on the latest trends in adolescent drug use. It's being delivered by Kyle Harder from Gateway Rehab Center, and they'll be sharing information on the latest trends in adolescent drug use and how to prevent it. Light refreshments will be served. And on Saturday, May 18th, take the pledge to turn up your life. We are having a young girls event between the ages of 9 and 19 to pledge to turn up their lives by embracing self-love, diversity, and self-respect. Join us for a breakfast and lunch on May 18th for a day of empowerment activities, Teen Summit, and celebrity guest speaker Michelle Newell, WPXI TV reporter. So please come out on May 18th between
9 a.m. and 4.
Between 9 and 4 is not on. Between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. at the this building. Thank you.
One final mention that the Hugs Skate Night will be on Saturday, correct?
Sunday.
No,
Saturday?
That was the 13th?
Yes, Saturday.
The 13th, 4 p.m. at the Eden Park Skating Rink in McKeesport.
4:30.
4:30. I apologize. 4:30.
Mine says mine was lost, but I don't need. I'm not voting on anything, right?
Okay.
Voting.
That will move
I guess I'll
us.
see everything.
Are there any other announcements? Okay. Do we have student speakers this evening? Don't see them. I think they'll be here next week. Okay, which moves us to presentations. Mr. Harris, library proclamations.
Okay. Whereas libraries are more than book repositories, demonstrating the breadth and depth of all they offer to communities, with opportunities for community engagement, learning, and growth while delivering new services which more closely connect to residents and their needs. Whereas libraries throughout Pennsylvania have consistently served as valued and needed institutions, and library staff and volunteers strengthen these centers by fueling their efforts to enhance the surrounding community. Whereas the Pennsylvania Library Association is the state's oldest and most diverse professional library organization serving libraries, library employees, library trustees, and friends of the library groups working to heighten awareness on the various tools and resources such as STEM programming, workforce development, and life planning tips libraries offer. Whereas collectively, we recognize librarians as information professionals who provide expertise, services, and guidance for patrons to access credible sources and material, making their own informed decisions about the worlds they navigate. Whereas librarians level the playing field for anyone who seeks information and access to technologies, particularly as society continues to transition the way in which information is shared and explored in the online world. Whereas the Pennsylvania Library Association's PA Forward initiative provides a collective voice for the state's libraries to tell their own stories, building capacity for the work they do with and for patrons through 5 literacies: basic, information, civic, and social, health, and financial, underscoring the importance of lifelong learning. Whereas Pennsylvania libraries support democracy and affect social change through their commitment to providing equitable access to information for all library users regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas April 9th is National Library Workers' Day, a day for all library staff, volunteers, and supporters to highlight the immeasurable contributions made by libraries. April 10th is National Bookmobile Day, a day recognizing the importance of libraries being available beyond their physical structure. And April 11th is Take Action for Libraries Day, a day which encourages everyone to recognize how libraries enhance communities and quality of life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, James Harris, Superintendent, proclaim National Library Week, April 7th through the 13th, 2019, in the Woodland Hills School District. Residents are encouraged to visit their local libraries this week and beyond, especially the libraries in the Woodland Hills School District, Swissville, Braddock, and C.C. Miller. Exploring all the libraries have to offer, realizing that literacy is power and that libraries provide the fuel to move Pennsylvania forward. Thank you.
Present to you these proclamations. Thank you. Braddock Library? C.C. Miller? It doesn't matter. They're all the same. Congratulations. Ready? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. We
You're welcome.
appreciate the work that you do in the communities. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Harris.
Okay, tonight I wanted to present to the board the administration's recommendation for district realignment. This has been presented a number of times throughout the community, and tonight the board will have a chance to see it once again. The district areas of concern: academic achievement, school facilities, enrollment, finances, and the next 10 years. We would like to increase the core program, which is ELA, math, and science. We would like to increase student participation in the arts, targeted intervention for gap closure and gender and racial disparities within programs, greater inclusion for special education students, and differentiated learning. We also are planning to reboot the Promise program and enhance our cyber program, which currently is costing $3 million. We are estimating we could bring $1 million of that back for next year. We would also like to refocus the district on special events and parent workshops. The enrollment over the last 4 years has seen a 14.4% decline, or 550 students. So we have to do something within the district to make sure that we reallocate our resources in their most efficient and effective way. Enrollment by grade. Right now, our average grade level is 251 students, where we have one bubble year in third grade, which is about 290 students. Our graduation rate, improving, but still not good enough. Right now, our average students grad is about 84.4%. The state average for the last few years is about 87.8% or 88%. The enrollments are dropouts. Right now, we're losing about 35.8 or 36 students per year to dropouts. We're losing them. We have to find a way to get them back or to remain. Okay, this is where our students are going once they're enrolled and they leave us. In public schools, 46% of them go to public schools once they leave, 10% go to charters, 10% go to cybers, 10% leave the state, 10% go to Phase 4. Phase 4 is our credit recovery organization that we contract out with, who take our students when we feel that they cannot accumulate enough credits to graduate. Then we have placement, job corps, GED, and 7% of our students drop out. We feel that with this realignment, we will be able to get back or not lose about 35% of the students. They would be some from charter, some from cyber, Phase 4, job corps, GED, and dropouts. and hopefully those that are leaving for public schools aren't leaving because of us. But we feel that we could recoup about 35% of our population back. Okay, our suggested budget reductions. Right now, we're looking at secretaries, a restorative justice, climate coordinators, communities and schools, 2 SROs, one at Rankin, one at Churchill. We will close the Rankin building, relocating the Promise program. We will have some savings through gasoline and diesel bidding and our cyber school tuition. The reconfiguration, right now we're looking at a reduction of 15 teachers, secretaries, teachers at 6.5, 2 guidance counselors, 3 special ed, 3 social workers, 14 paraprofessionals, and 1 assistant elementary principal, totaling $3.1 million. So there's an asterisk next to these numbers because they continue to keep moving. However, as of, I believe, last Friday, these were the numbers. So we're looking at a savings of total reconfiguration and budget reductions of $5.4 million. We were made aware of last week that currently our tax collection rate is lower than anticipated, which is $1 million difference as of last week. So we're looking at 3 options. We presented at the community meetings option A, B, and C. Initially, B was the original option that was presented, which was following a pseudo-Princeton model where we would relocate similar grades in various buildings, and the students would follow that cohort as they moved. So we were looking at putting K through 2 at Wilkins, 3 through 5 at Edgewood, and then making a true middle school out of Dixon and the intermediate, and then keeping the academy in the model that it was in one more year, and then we would move 7th and 8th graders out of the academy into the middle school. Option C would be the full nuclear option, option C, where we put the academy into the mix, where we would put pre-K through, I believe, 2 at Wilkins, and 3 through 4 at the academy, 5, 6 at, 3, 4 at the academy, 5, 6 at Edgewood, and then a true middle school, and then high school. Option A, which was presented by one of the community members, she mentioned, what if we did a pre-K through 8 or pre-K through 5? We went back, we could not financially do a pre-K through 8. However, we can do a pre-K through 5, and that is the option that we are presenting to you this evening. We would like to follow a option A model of turning the district into 3 pre-K through 5, a middle school and a high school. This model will give us decreased costs. We will have less transitions than option B and C. We will be able to do some PD, although there are some difficulties with grade levels spread throughout, but we still can manage it. We can increase supports as needed, and we can balance academics across district. So initially we talked about creating a STEM and then a fine arts school. That's now off the table. We are looking at creating STEAM across the board, adding the science and the arts in all grade levels. And this would be option A. We return the academy to Turtle Creek Elementary STEAM Academy. We will be able to increase supports for all students. We would add STEAM specials, computer science, engineering concepts, arts integration, and foreign language exploration, and charge for success. The school would be pre-K, and as you see, we currently have 3 pre-K sessions running throughout the district. In this model, all the elementaries will have pre-K. So we would have 3 elementary buildings going pre-K through 5. Edgewood Elementary STEAM Academy, once again, pre-K through 5, same curriculum, same programming, no difference. Wilkins, same format, same curriculum, same programming, no difference. This is the option that the administration feels would be the most effective financially and academic for the district. Woodland Hills Dixon Preparatory STEAM Academy. We would increase our student technology in that building, career pathway introduction, getting them ready for the high school. We would have enhanced STEAM electives, computer science, engineering, arts integration, and foreign language. We would continue with the charge for success, and we would bring down the family and consumer science program, so we would have it at the middle school level. So once again, Even though we are reducing, we are still able to enhance and increase the rigor and the programming available to our students. Woodland Hills High School, as you see, the 7th and 8th graders are removed. They would go to the intermediate building next year, and then once the Dixon building is complete, would move together as a cohort, 6th, 7th, and 8th, to the new middle school. But the high school would be a true high school, 9, 10, 11, 12. The students in year 2 would be in a totally new remodeled facility with a new secure entrance. They will have early childhood dual enrollment program. We will have improved technology. It's an age-appropriate environment. A few board meetings ago, we had some high school students here complaining about how those 7th and 8th graders are running around the building playing tag and how they're just not a good fit for that environment, too much freedoms. They need a more age-appropriate environment. We feel that the middle school at Dixon will give that to them. And then we will still have our career pathways that are continuing. We presented option B, which we're not going to go over this evening because we are presenting option A. And this is our financial recap of our options. If we stay status quo, we end up with, as of last week, a $4 million deficit. Option A, which we would like to do, gives us a deficit of 4.7 with a fund balance of 4.4 million, which leaves us a difference as of last week of 290,000. This number right here is a moving number. We feel that we can make up the difference in our purchasing and in other areas, so we can cover $290,000. Option B, which was the pseudo Princeton model, gives us 790 as a deficit, and option C, which is our nuclear model, gives us a $10,000 balance left over. We feel that option A is a number that we could work with and overcome this difference because, once again, it's a moving total. And as we get closer and closer to the end of the year, we can make that up. Right now, the academy, building capacity, I know there were some questions about the size of our buildings. So the academy right now, well, as of when it's reconfigured, would have a capacity of 625. Wilkins of 800, and Edgewood of 875, Dixon 725, and the high school of 1973. Okay, there's a question about classrooms. Dixon, once it's completed, will have 44 classrooms available for homerooms. Edgewood would have 41, Wilkins 35, the high school 96, the academy 31, and intermediate 43. The realignment plan will help us with the age-appropriate academic environment, balanced levels of student supports. Once again, we have no magnet schools in this model. Every elementary school across the district will be the same. We're able to reduce staffing and operational costs. We're going to use the full capacity of our academic centers. For example, Edgewood right now is at about 45% capacity. That's not an effective use of our space or our funds. Hopefully, the students will begin lifelong friendships, and this is a continued phased implementation of program. The program will grow and develop over the next few years. Hopefully, we have a robust, rigorous program that can compete with the charters and the other schools in the area. I mean, we're also focusing on differentiated learning. Under the realignment plan, we will reduce future renovation costs, no confusion on attendance lines, because this is an open enrollment district. What we're wanting to do is offer families the option, and we discussed it this afternoon and over the last couple of days, over how we would do that. We are looking at allowing parents to have option A, B, or C. We are thinking that most parents would choose the school that's closest to them, and we would increase our walker numbers. Right now, we have roughly less than 200 students who walk to school every day. Our most walkable school, which is Edgewood, has the fewest numbers of students who actually live in the proximity of the school who actually attend the school. So the folks who live around the Edgewood school, a lot of them don't even go to that school. So hopefully with our increased programming and our rigor and this realignment, we can get some of those parents back. The other schools, there's something in transportation called hazards. It's multi-lane roads, it's railroad tracks, it's busy intersections. We have to bus through those. So a school like the academy, which is sitting in the middle of some high traffic areas, we have to bus across those streets. The high school has the most walkers. I guess those kids are older and they like to hike to school through the large campus that we have. Wilkins, not many walkers at all, and the other schools, we just don't have walkers, just the way the buildings are built and located. We would like to increase our, also the limiting inequities in our programming, because right now, once again, there's no magnet school. No school is getting more resources than the other. There were some questions about special ed, and Jen here can answer a lot of those questions, but however, basically where the students go or where the resources are going to go. So there may be a building that has a specific need more than others. Well, they will have more support for that than another building would. There's also been questions about how many sections we would have in each building. Well, for example, if the students stay where they are right now, Wilkins will have more third grade sections than Edgewood. We're not asking people to move. We're not forcibly relocating people. However, we will grow a grade in certain buildings. So Edgewood may have 3 sections of 4th grade, where Wilkins has 5 or 6. It all depends on the number of students. But we will reallocate our staff based on the most effective way we can do that. So we're opening it up. So when parents go to register, we'll give them first, second, third options, and then from there we'll see how we have to do staffing. But we want to be flexible and work with the families. Hopefully, once again, they will choose the school that's closest to them. We would like to eliminate the lottery next year at the academy. Once again, open enrollment. There's no need for the lottery, so there's no feeling of winner or loser. We would like to balance diversity in student activities by opening up the arts and the other programming. We feel that students will be exposed to various programming earlier and have an interest instead of waiting until the later ages. We would like to expose students to a varied curriculum. Once again, we will be working on having students in first, second, and kindergarten being exposed to foreign language skills. And we're also looking at, in our STEM programming, a non-gender biased education. I can see maybe next year or maybe the year after having an all-girls science team. We want to make sure that the young ladies here are not intimidated by the males, because we know that happens in science and math. So we want to make sure that, and Jim Clausen's talked about it a number of times, how we want to expose students early so they have an interest and not fade away. We feel that this will reverse the academic decline of the district. Charge to Success, which is a hands-on, project-based program that can be discussed later if you have questions. We will realign our resources. We will offer fine arts and STEM in all grades. We will have a clear pathway for the STEAM program at the high school, a competitive cyber academy, and we also will have increase our dual enrollment with our schools nearby. These were the community meeting dates. We took a lot of input after the first one. We did go back and retool this a couple of times, and even after the second one. But by the time we got to the third meeting, we pretty much got it down and took the feedback from the community. We took their advice. We went back, retooled it. We looked at some of the suggestions that they could do. We fed into this. Some we couldn't do. But we listened to everybody who would talk. And most of the meetings lasted 3-4 hours. And we got a lot of good feedback from the community. We can't make everyone happy, but we feel that this is the step in the right direction. So I'll be happy to take any board questions. And I have the staff here, support staffs lined up, ready to go. So, wait, I'm sorry. There was one question that came out which I didn't address. The start times of the schools. Currently, the junior, senior high school is at 7:20. That would remain. The academy would follow the Wilkins-Edgewood time, and that would be 9:15. So the academy parents right now, they would get to sleep a little bit longer. Once again, Wilkins-Edgewood Academy would be at 9:15. Rankin would no longer be there, and Dixon and the intermediate would be at 8:15, which is about a 10-minute earlier start time. Other than that, the start times are the same, except for the academy, which gets to sleep in a little longer, and the intermediate, which would start about 10 minutes earlier, and that's for transportation. So I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes.
I do have a transportation question, kind of leading into that. Is Siobhan here? Can you talk a little bit about how this is affecting busing, especially if families are getting to choose which school they go to, if you have one bus stop with 3 kids going to 3 different ways, how does that look as far as busing goes? Is it that's 3 buses coming?
Well, basically, we already have that because we're not just with our schools, but because we do transport to so many schools, we do have sometimes kids at the same stop that are going to, say, 5, 10, 15 different schools. They just have to go by whatever bus number they have that comes
Our
to the
buses
stop.
are able to loop with those
Yes,
start
we
times.
have gone through and studied how many people are at each school, what we're projecting, and being able to reallocate our resources to make that work. And that's why, we were looking at rolling back the Dixon time back 10 minutes so that there would be enough time between that second and third tier to be able to get the buses to the next level. And then the same thing in the afternoon with the dismissals, that with that a little bit 10 minutes earlier dismissal at that, what we call the 7th tier, those buses can then get to the 8th, which would be the 3K5 buildings.
I have another transportation question.
Sure.
So with these times as they're laid out and the arrangements as they're laid out, as compared to this year, do you see the new schedule, do you see these arrangements being more efficient as compared to this year, less efficient, or about the same?
Basically about the same.
About the same. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be using about the exact same resources. The number of buses that we are utilizing now, we'll be utilizing again. We're just going to be reallocating where they are and what time they're getting there. And we're actually able to, we're projecting that we're going to be able to better utilize, like for instance, the buses we have to devote to Forbes are actually going to be able to help with our third run because of the times and things like that. So we're actually better able to use some of those resources.
Thank you.
So in terms of cost, then, do you anticipate a positive cost impact, negative cost impact, neutral? Any?
Basically neutral, except for the fact that our contract is going up 2% for next year, so
Right.
just the regular contractual increase.
One more question. Any concern on having kindergarten through 5th grade on the same buses?
We've had that before. We used to have, when I first came here, we had K through 6
K6,
buildings,
right.
and I actually think having a little bit more of a mix of a little bit older students with younger students maybe helps to, show how to behave on a bus, and then actually there's probably going to be some siblings that are on board, and sometimes having it can hurt sometimes, but mostly having a sibling on board helps with the little ones. If you have a kindergartner or first grader, and then that helps at the bus stop too, to have, a 4th or 5th grader on board the bus with their sibling, and they're able to go home then, when they get off the bus. I don't anticipate any more problems than, some that we already see.
In the presentation, Mr. Harris spoke about that because he envisions more people picking neighborhood schools, that there would be a decrease in gas and busing and things like that, but you just said that it was going to be a...
Actually, the decrease in the cost of the fuel is actually due to the consortium, the bid results that we got, with the AIU fuel consortium that we participate in. Our fuel costs are going down by approximately 50 cents a gallon, so that's why we're realizing that decrease in cost of fuel.
Okay, so it's not a realignment situation, it's a contract situation.
It's a contract, yes.
Okay. I have another question for Mr. Harris. I get that the administration is recommending option A. My question is, in any option, A, B, or C, could you pull off the realignment in a timely manner that's effective in any option? And if you can't do one of the options in the timeline that's given, which one would that be and why?
The one we couldn't do is B. Initially, we had the academy staying one more year. But when we looked at the staffing requirements and credentialing, we had to have the 7th and 8th graders pulled out of that building a year early because it would cost us more to duplicate those grades in multiple buildings. So the cost savings that we get through A is because we're moving that group earlier than the first presentation had. So C is extremely disruptive. It creates no cohesion at all in any of the schools. You're only there 2 years. So it hurts the parent-teacher relationships because you're there the next year and then you're gone. So it's hard to have any type of community involvement, stability at all. That's why we call it the nuclear option. It blows everything up. B, once again, kept the academy intact for 1 more year and then it would be out. But then we still had the lottery system there, which is very disruptive, and keeping 7th and 8th graders there, budgetarily, we couldn't do it. So when we looked at A, looking at all the elementary buildings, the Academy, Wilkins, and Edgewood, and creating pre-K through 5, we saw some consistencies there. We could make it one move. And also under B, we would have to do 2 district realignments. So contractually, that's super disruptive also to our staff, the teachers in particular, because when we do, per their contract, a realignment, every job comes up for bid again. So the union said, hey, is there a way where we don't have to do this again the following year? So that's when we really drilled down on option A and said, this could work for us. And it does away with the lottery process. It does away with not having local community schools with a pre-K through 5 system set up. And it also does away with having to disrupt everything again once teachers get in place after the first year. And we do achieve savings and also a lot of the academic goals we're trying to achieve.
So I have a follow-up question. Maybe this could be better answered tomorrow with Mr. Gigliotti, but the issue I see here, I like option A, and I know a lot of the feedback from the community was, having that time in the building, the K through 5, to build those relationships. But we're broke. We're still short $290,000. We can cover with some cuts, but then what's going to happen for next year? We have no money. So, I see this, this is still a problem. How are we going to keep up with all this new academic improvement when we have no more money? This concerns me, timeline-wise.
Well, timeline-wise, we're up against the wall now. So we have to do something academically and financially. So this isn't just a financial plan, and it also isn't just an academic plan. I would have loved to be able to phase some changes in over the next few years. That would be great. I mean, initially that's what B was. But per the teacher's contract, whenever we do things like that, it becomes very disruptive. And financially, we need to do something now to get us where we need to be, because we cannot submit a negative budget to the state. That kicks in some other things that we don't want to have happen. So next year, I may be standing here again talking about some slight reductions or changes, but we really need to see what this reconfiguration does and how it impacts us, and we go from there. We may get more students back. We may have greater savings out of our WOA, our online system, than budgeted. We may have $2 million, so we may be a little better off. But right now, we feel this is the best start that we're going to get in going in that right direction. That isn't blowing everything up.
While we're talking about teachers, I have a couple of questions. So some of this is a little bit nitty-gritty, so I apologize for that. But when will teachers and staff be notified of what their assignments are going to be? Do we have a timeline for that, Ms. Boyd?
Sure. Target date is June 30th.
Okay.
Maybe July 15th, only because after speaking with the union president, he has expressed that he would like to move the survey return date until mid-May, so after the board votes next week. So we agreed to that. So we're going to allow that. So that's going to extend out the deadline date by a whole 30 days.
Okay.
So I'm going to need at least a few weeks into June to do the assignments. But as long as we have all the information needed, that should be fairly possible
So
to do.
what does that mean in terms of packing and moving? If teachers aren't going to have their assignments, we're not going to know which teachers are moving. How does that impact the packing and, logistics of this process?
Well, that was something we discussed earlier. We talked about teachers should pack anyway because it's expected that they're going to move. And that's something Mr. Finney, I guess, is going to have to discuss in terms of the moving of the boxes, but teachers should be packing their rooms. Would we talk about having principals?
So today we discussed, like at the end of the year, they had a couple of clerical days. The 2 last school days of the year, we would give them 2 half days, which is like a full day, but in the afternoon to pack, where we will speak to the principals. And I haven't done that yet, so they're probably watching and seeing this. This is the first time they're hearing. But I would suggest to the principals that the 2 last days of school in the afternoon, that the teachers can plan structured activity, whether it's a movie about a book they've watched or sort of like a celebration for, and then they could have those last 2 days in the afternoon to pack.
So we wouldn't be letting students go. Students would still be in the buildings. It would be structured somehow so teachers had time.
Yes.
And will that address the issue of the teachers who have used their clerical day and will not? Okay.
Yes.
So there is a plan for that.
Yes,
reality.
and we'll become more creative with the principal. They may take all the kids in the auditorium, I'm sure, and we'll figure it. There'll be personnel in the building that we should be able to utilize.
Okay. So in terms of logistics, this might be a Mr. Finney question, but at this point, we're going to have everybody pack and label their boxes, and then
once you guys board approve everything next week, then I'll be at Home Depot purchasing all the boxes, tape, and once I get the list who's moving, they will be given their boxes to pack their stuff, and most likely be using a moving company to move the things.
Okay, but we're not going to know that before the end of the year.
Correct.
So everybody's going to pack all their stuff.
Correct.
And it'll be labeled, and then we'll figure out who's moving from where to where, and that. So, can we have some kind of logistic plan that we can see that will sort of spell out how this is going to work?
Yes.
I'm very concerned about the logistics of this. It's going to be a big operation, so I would like to see that plan, if we can.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Can we talk for a second about why we need to do this in April rather than May? And maybe I answered my own question a minute ago because of timelines.
Yes, the timeline. The earlier the board votes on this, the sooner we can get started, because this vote will impact construction, budget, teacher bidding, placement. So I'll ask tonight, would the board feel comfortable voting on this evening?
Tonight?
I don't believe that's fair to the public, to be honest.
Okay. So what we need, we're having a budget meeting tomorrow, public meeting, to go over the finances. But once again, the longer we delay, then it just pushes everything back, because this impacts, if the board says no, then we have to go back and say, okay, how do we get down $4 million?
And that's my next question. What would we have to cut to get to that, to reduce that $4 million? What would we cut to get that number?
I'm still identifying it. We're trying to break out one cost from the other.
We would still have a lot of the reductions that you see up there with staffing, with the scheduling and things like that are going on at the high school. We will start looking at programs. These reductions, reconfiguration, we don't cut programming. So teachers have asked, well, what positions are going to be available at schools? Well, we're not cutting positions. I mean, we're not eliminating, like reading specialists. We're not doing that. We're just, we're downsizing a bit, we're right-sizing. So if we had to come with $4 million, this district would look very different. And once again, there are cuts that were listed that weren't really part of the realignment. Okay, so these were the reconfiguration cuts, but these were the cuts. So we got to $2.2 million. We would look for another $2 million someplace.
Okay.
And that's when we start looking at programs and things like that. So the realignment savings, reconfiguration, are here, which are changing, but roughly this is it. But the other cuts were here. So some, like the Promise program, was being changed before the reconfiguration was ever talked about. The fuel was something that's not part of the reconfiguration. The other programs, climate coordinators, although very needed, we had a certification problem with them, so they were being reduced. And other programs were a one and done or train the trainer type program. So those $2.2 million deductions right there. So we need to come up with another $2 million.
Okay, if you skip to the next page, a lot of these are going to be scheduling at the high school. We're going to have reductions just because
of scheduling changes.
Scheduling changes that we don't need. Some of these will stay because they're not going to be related to the realignment. So I'm still trying to pull that together.
I've got a bunch of questions, so if you guys want to jump in at any time, feel free.
I have another question.
Okay.
If you're basically saying that parents can pick any school they want their child to go to, then talk to me about class sizes in each building. What's the anticipated class size, and also at what point I'm assuming it's only 2 capacity. You're only going to allow 2 capacity, and then once we're at capacity in one building, what does option B and C look like, and how do you determine, are they going to go to their C choice or B choice?
Well, we're anticipating let's look at elementary, because that's where the real big changes are. We're looking at class sizes around 23 outside of kindergarten, which is staying at 15. Okay, so currently, say we have 4 sections in 3rd grade, and we're trying to keep the class sizes right around 23. Well, if we add 1 child, that's not going to trigger an additional section. However, if we find that we have 6, 7, 8, 9 kids come in, that would trigger a new section being added. And once again, outside of the academy, we have space in all the buildings to add sections, just because of the size of the building. And that's what we do now, really. And at a certain point, we could have a kindergarten class with 16 kids. That's not going to trigger a new section. Then you would have, another 6 sections with 6 kids in it or something. So there's a certain amount of students that say, okay, we're getting a flood of students coming in. And as you get the data each week, we also have students who leave. So a lot of times it's a balance. And we would keep the elementary classes right about 23, which is on average lower. Usually they're about 25. Kindergarten, however, will remain at 15. In the high school, it's all
first grade.
Well, whatever those caps are now, we're not changing those caps. Now, high school electives and middle school electives all vary based on interest of the program. And one of the ways that we're receiving these changes in staffing is because of the caps or the minimum requirements we're placing at the high school. So we're no longer running classes with 3, 4, 5, 6 students anymore. It has to be 15. And the scheduling is already being worked on. And it's outside of the reconfiguration.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, because I got a couple questions.
Go for it.
So one is a follow-up to Mr. Gray's question. Is the logic behind making it basically open enrollment to minimize the number of students that you have to move out of schools now? So if a student is in Wilkins, they get to choose to stay in Wilkins instead of getting forced to, say, move to Edgewood based on where they live?
Well, we're trying to make it as least disruptive as possible. And if they already have relationships within that school and they want to keep that, we're not trying to force anyone to move. And if you're comfortable there, we don't want to shake up everything. And we also feel that a lot of students will pick the school that's closest to them. One of the questions that we kept getting most frequently during the presentations were, how long should kindergartners ride the bus? Well, if we can open this up, then hopefully you pick your closest school and you have a short bus ride, or you could even walk to school.
Right, I get that, but okay, so don't take this the wrong way in the transportation department, but transportation has never been our strong suit, right? And having 5 kids at the same bus stop that can be going to 3 different schools all at the same time doesn't seem remotely efficient from a transportation standpoint.
That's right? What we do now. And
well, but you don't have three kids in 3rd grade at the same bus stop that are going to 3 different elementary schools, which is what they could do in this case if they all chose that, right?
We do. But they're at different times and different
right.
bus
In this
numbers.
case, they won't be at different times. Right. You'll have 3 elementary kids going to 3 different elementary schools that are all within our boundaries. Right. So you're Well, anyway, I just have a hard time envisioning how this is going to be cost effective to do that. Right.
Well, transportation, it does not become cost. We don't save money in transportation. That's not one of the areas where we're reducing.
We need to save money, right? So that might be a way to do that.
I just want to reiterate, though, that even though the same kids, like going to our schools, say 3K through 5s,
right,
don't stand at a bus stop at the same time, we do have, say, 3rd graders all at the same bus stop that are going to our school, going to the academy, going to Propel Braddock Hills,
sure,
going to St. Bernadette's, going to East Catholic.
So
you can have
those situations are things we can't control.
Right.
We can control whether or not we have 3 kids that live on the same street going to 3 different schools at the same time that are all Woodland Hills schools. We can't control if kids going to Propel at a certain time. Right. We have to bus them.
Right.
Right. So there's a difference between what we're sort of forced to do, right, and what we can do on ourselves to minimize our transportation costs. That sort of makes sense, right? All right, that was my only sort of comment about that. I'm curious about the programmatic differences as far as having the blow it all up option, right? The original idea of this was to make sure that, so in grade level schools, you can ensure collaboration within a grade level, right? How does the benefit of doing that weigh against sort of the detriment of having all the 3 different cohorts of 3rd grade teachers, for instance, not collaborating, like working in their silos, as opposed to grade level collaboration if you do the sort of blow it up option? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right, because right now and I've always sort of had this feeling that the buildings compete against each other as opposed to collaborate with each other, right? And so this kind of reinforces that, because now you can also have parents choosing which school they want to go to. And we hope it would be because there's neighborhood schools as opposed to the reputation that the one becomes the good school, right? For whatever reason, whether it's building leadership or whatever, right? That's a whole bunch of crap that I just threw out there.
No, I understand your question clearly. So to address your question, we will have, yes, there will still be collaboration among grade levels in the individual buildings. However, when we plan the district-wide professional development, then the teachers will be together as a building. But now that we're creating the equity across the schools, we will be so when we go in for conversations, observations, the principals have their morning meetings, they will all be delivering the same topics. So, and Mr. Klaus and I always work with the principals on what they're working on, and when we do our walkthroughs, so we can concentrate. So and they can still have vertical and horizontal teaming, and then when we plan PD, we can still configure it. So the PDs will be planned equitable across the district. They won't be here in different themes. And it'll be based on their data, yes, but I can guarantee you that there'll be a commonality with the data across the district together.
Okay, I mean, at our curriculum committee last month, and Mr. Clausen presented some very compelling data that when you have very targeted interventions across a grade level, that the growth scores are really quite impressive.
Absolutely. And
Right.
so they'll all have the same targeted interventions across the grade level in each building as pertains to the data. You have to go from the data.
Sure. No, I get that.
And we plan the PD according to the data. And then when we get together district-wide, then we will, I'm sure I can guarantee you, commonalities across skills that we need to enhance or skills that we need to give those targeted interventions for. And yes, targeted intervention is key.
Okay.
Mr. Harris, can you clarify something? Or you just made a statement. You said, according to Dr. Hildenbrand's question, you said a student who's currently in Wilkins can pick to stay in Wilkins because of the relationship there. That's not necessarily accurate in the sense of only thing that's going to be similar is the building. There might be a whole new staff. So the relationship you talk about, I think people need to understand, yes, they may go to the same building, but that relationship with the teachers or principals or anything, that could change. There could be nobody who was originally in Wilkins, currently in Wilkins after the realignment.
Well, that possibility could happen every year. And teachers could agree to remain in a building and not leave. But that possibility occurs just based on the teacher's contract. They're allowed to bump through seniority, secretaries also, every year when positions become opening. And I'm sure Angel could tell more detail, but when someone leaves, it creates a whole bumping scenario in various areas.
I want to point out that Ms. Rebecca shaking her head. She may have something to say on this.
So bumping only occurs with support staff.
Okay. Well,
there has to be an opening professional staff in order for them to transfer into. There's not any bumping that occurs with senior professional.
To clarify that question, right, this coming year, a teacher will stay at Wilkins, assuming if they choose to stay and they're not bumped out of that position, right? The only way that
it depends on seniority and the number of sections, classrooms that we have available. It really all depends. I mean, to Mr. Graves' point, it could be a totally new building, but it could have the same teachers in it that were already there. That is your more seasoned building, your more seasoned teacher.
We just need to be clear about that. That I mean, the staff is not going to necessarily be staying in the building. There is a staff process that has to occur where they will have an option to rank buildings and that kind of thing, and then they will be placed based on those surveys, right?
Correct.
Okay. Here's what I don't want. I don't want a district realignment that we do, and then now we have a citizen realignment because they said, oh, we expected them to be in this class with this teacher or in this building with these teachers, and then they said, now we want to go over to this other building. That's what we don't want to happen, because if you're going to give them the option, we need to let them clearly know that the option is more or less the building, not necessarily the staff.
Well, do students pick? Well, what we were looking at doing is offering the same as we do for teachers, having families have your first, second, and third choice. And based on capacity of those buildings, which we won't go over, but we know based on our staffing requirements, we're only going to have so many teachers available. So a school could technically fill up because we've exhausted all those teachers that are available, then they would go to their second choice or their third choice.
So how will that be determined? When do you start going to a second choice instead of, like, is it in order of application? Is it first come, like a first
come, first serve? And we were looking at, after Mother's Day, opening up a district-wide open house. Once we have the vote and we can move forward, because right now everything's depending upon the vote, and then it kicks in a second wave of this is how we're going to manage this. So we would offer a first, second, third choice, district open enrollment, and then we would see where placement is, and then that's how we would also see how many spots we would have for teachers. Because, like I said, we may have a huge interest in third grade at Wilkins, and not a lot in fourth or fifth grade. So there may not be a fifth grade at Wilkins if we have a lot of second or third graders there. We would grow a grade there each year. We may, so we will not have equal number of sections per grade in each building.
Okay. So will there be a deadline for parents to submit their choices for schools?
Well, we have
to tag on that deadline. What does that mechanism look like? So, is this an opt-in system or an opt-out system? Meaning that every parent has to make a selection, or if they don't make a selection, by default, does their student stay at the building?
They would stay in their current school.
Okay.
Okay.
But along with the deadline, though, is this going to be, I need to come in, sign a piece of paper, or is this going to be online? There's going to be an online access that they're going to be able to...
We could do multiple ways, but right now, we were looking at the week after Mother's Day for a week to get this put in place, and then have, like I said, first, second, third options. And then once we see where the interests go, then we would see how we need to place people.
Okay.
Because this all comes back to the communication problem, in the sense that, the day before school is when I'm getting a letter that says what classroom my student's going to be in and what bus they're going to be on.
Now, we would know this before the school ends, but also to your question, the deadline, we have students enrolling up until the third day when school starts.
Sure, yeah.
So there's no deadline.
Yeah.
It's really first come, first serve. And also gives us an idea, because 3, 4, or 5 students coming in doesn't really change a section. Once that we'll see where people are moving to, and also one of the most important positions now becomes the enrollment person. They're going to be managing, directing, the conductor, moving people around. So we're utilizing the assistant principals in the building who work 12 months a year, and also the enrollment side to understand where people are going. And that constant communication has to occur. And then once school starts, the enrollment goes back to the schools. But we'll know the number of sections that are available, the number of seats that are available, and we will have sections that close.
So at the open house, you're not going to know what teachers are in what buildings?
No.
So after Mother's Day open house, when families are going
we won't know which teachers.
Tour, they won't know what teacher, so if they had somebody in mind, they're not going to know.
With
I know
open enrollment or with no boundaries, I should say, and families not necessarily getting the teachers they would want or expect with buildings, would there be anything stopping families from choosing new building once the school year starts?
No.
So we could potentially see a change or influx.
The hope is the hope is that families see that there's not a pull towards one building because they're getting the same quality across. That's why we got away from the fine arts and STEM.
No, I understand all that.
So but people have their favorites, and we're not going to deny them of their favorites. But once again, teachers could possibly change grade levels, buildings every year. So I understand people, anticipate having a certain teacher 1 year and that teacher's no longer there or teaches a different grade, but we're trying to have a less disruptive model and not draw lines. Now, during enrollment, if I live on Columbia Avenue and that's actually where I live, and my closest school is Edgewood, and I go to enroll my child, I go to enrollment, and I say, I want to go to Wilkins, and I say, hey, you know what, you're only 3 minutes from Edgewood. Oh, I didn't realize that. This is what Edgewood has to offer, the same as Wilkins, the same as Turtle Creek. Let's go to choose Edgewood. So we have to have that discussion during the enrollment period also, is directing people. And we're not going to draw lines, but there'll be pseudo lines. You're 5 minutes from this school, you're 10 minutes from this school. This is a 30-minute bus ride or an hour bus ride, where this is a 6-minute bus ride. So those conversations have to occur. So that would happen during the open house and also during the enrollment period.
Can I ask one more question on enrollment before we do that, Jeff? I'm sorry. So this may not be an issue for next year, but going forward, my understanding is there will be no default schools for anybody. The parent has to select or rank the choices.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Well, because we're talking about a lot of theoreticals here about where kids go, but I think most people in my nature is right, and I think everybody else is pretty much, the kids go to local schools. Pretty much that's where their buddies go. They're not deciding, like, I want to send my kid 20 minutes across town when I could send them 5 minutes. Because for the parents and everything, if you're going to school to do things and stuff like that, you want to crowd charge. You want to go to the school that's the closest. And so most kids have always tended to do that. And I would imagine, there are going to be some people who are going to choose to do that. So it might work out where somebody decides to go to Wilkins. Well, there's somebody who lives in Wilkins who might want to decide to go to Edgewood, and so you can swap those students out. But I think a lot of this is most parents are just going to choose to go to the closest school. And that's just the easiest.
And I can tell you, when I was a much younger person, my mom and my friends' moms all decided not to have us in the same class together because we would be too disruptive. Okay? But in doing that, all of our schools are not accessible by everyone in the community. So what we learned from our community forums is we would have, so say someone wants to go to Wilkins, but they don't have the transportation to get there. We would have some community meetings here, or someplace that's along a bus line that they can get to that's easier to access. So just because you choose to send your child outside of your neighborhood because the 3 boys like to play a little rough sometimes and get on each other's nerves, maybe you want to separate it, but just because they're going to someplace where you can't necessarily get to doesn't mean you can't be more involved. So we would make sure that we have community-wide events held at various locations around the district, and this building being one where we're not really utilizing it the way we should in the evenings.
Question 4 about equity special ed. You kept mentioning that there could perhaps be a chance that we might steer a special needs student to one particular building. So that, to me, in my mind, doesn't sound like that's solving the problem of fairness and equity if you're telling them they still have to go to a particular building. So
really where that comes in is when you have, right now when you do the realignment, we would be able to offer where our students' needs are, and usually those needs, we have life skills, we have autistic support, emotional support, and we have the learning support. Where you come into the smaller number of students is when you have the higher level of support. For example, for our therapeutic classrooms, you're not going to have a large number of students needing that therapeutic support. So what we would look at what we call that regional classroom. So we might have to set up a regional classroom. For example, when I looked at our students right now who use that therapeutic support. So currently, the way the children's neighborhood schools, I looked where they were at prior to going to that therapeutic classroom at the Promise program. So right now we have 3 therapeutic classrooms right now. We can still keep those 3 therapeutic classrooms. But we would have, for example, at Wilkins, that could house the kids who are in grades 3 through 5, because right now that's their neighborhood school that they were at prior to going to the Promise program. And then at Edgewood, it would be the students within K-2, because that was their neighborhood school. So I was looking at it that way. So if we would have a student, if we would set it up that way, we would have a student maybe at Wilkins, and they are in 2nd grade, and right now that therapeutic classroom would be at Edgewood, then that would be having to go to Edgewood instead of Wilkins, because special education is a service, not a place. So we would put them, but that's usually just those higher level of support needs students. It wouldn't be, like right now we have a small amount at the academy. It wouldn't be like that. Be able to line it across of the schools.
Good. Thanks.
Mr. Clausen, a question concerning curriculum, please.
I didn't know Jim was over there.
You're
you thought you were going to escape, huh?
He was hiding. I didn't see you over there. It's right behind the pole. It's good. Didn't want to make eye contact.
Yeah, right. Jim, all I'm asking is if you could give the group and the people watching on TV a sense from a curriculum standpoint what you see, and you don't have to elaborate in detail, but a sense of what you think the highlights of what this configuration is going to bring from a curriculum standpoint.
Sure, I think we have some new programs coming in that Dr. Pennyman can talk about, but in terms of the sort of STEAM programs that I think that we'll be adding to the buildings. We are talking very specifically about bringing world languages down to the elementary. We're talking about bringing a BCIT, which is Business Computer Information Technology elective, down to elementary. We are talking about having a musical expression course, which would be a essentially theater arts course, down at the elementary levels. We are talking about having a PE enrichment course and an art enrichment course down at the elementary levels. And we have looked at current staffing with reduction estimates and how those would rotate in and out during the course of the year to see how that would be achievable. So some of those courses might only be a 9-week course as opposed to a full year special. And you'd see those teachers rotating throughout the elementary buildings in order to achieve that. At our middle school level, we're looking at additional options in our specials in terms of looking at, instead of offering one BCIT course to 7th grade, we might offer 2 different BCIT courses, 2 different tech courses as options in the 7th and 8th grade level. We're also going to be able to increase, right now only our 8th grade honors science courses have a science lab, for example. Now, all 8th grade science courses will have a science lab. So when we're looking at sort of realizing the promise of making these a true STEAM school, those are the areas that actually concretely we're going to be able to actually add initiatives.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so could I follow up on that question then? Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
So is that sort of programming, though, only available, say, in the K through 5 model, as opposed to when you realign grade level buildings? So option C or whatever that option was. Right?
How programming is configured depends heavily on things like number of sections, number of staff movement rotations. So, I think we had some of this in our initial plan as well. So we are certainly looking at offering this in any of our realignment proposals, but how it would look specifically would be different depending on the configuration of the building.
Okay. All right, so then I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry. This comes back to maybe you can't answer this one. This is talking about the scheduling at the high school and reducing the number of classes that have small numbers of students.
Mm-hmm.
What are those sort of targeted classes, and how's that going to look? Because
anything less than 40, it's not going to go.
Anything less than 40?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Should be really conducive.
So much for small classes?
No. Well, it's here,
So my concern is
Yeah.
this. So you have some very talented students that want to take, say, Calc BC, but you have 10 students that want to take that. Does that class now become eliminated, and you eliminate the ability of our students to take that class?
I can't speak to that specifically, though I'm not aware of any cuts to AP courses or advanced courses. Certainly, when we talk about cutting sections, it's looking at, well, we have 2 sections of this class. One section has, 7 kids. One section has 25. Do we offer an additional section? I mean, I can't speak specifically to how individual scheduling issues are going to be resolved.
But my point is that the reductions that you're looking at are going to be based on something more like not having duplications of sections, with one class being tiny to accommodate a small number of students, as opposed to getting rid of classes that...
So we currently have, through our online catalog, a number of courses ranging from 7th and 8th grade all the way up to AP and world languages. So in the event that there's a course that may not have those numbers, we can certainly look at students taking advantage of that through the online program.
I will say, too, we talked about scheduling and the difficulties with scheduling. We ran the schedule at the high school for next year already. So, and looking at issues with Power School and those sorts of things. But in any kind of schedule, you will always have the opportunity of, yes, we can offer this course. We can't offer it 5 times a day. So we're always going to run into scenarios where there's a student who wants 6 specific things, and they can have 5 of them, but they can't have number 6. And that we're not necessarily able to open up a section for one particular student.
Yeah, I mean, I feel less sympathetic when a case like a student wants a very specialized schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm a little less sympathetic to, although I have to my kids are taking advantage of that, so I appreciate that, right? But I don't want to eliminate classes just because there may not be 15 like eliminate a class being offered at all, as opposed to having multiple sections of the class.
I mean, I can't speak to specific cutoff numbers. I mean, I can imagine scenarios, of 3 students requesting a class and things like that, where it might not go no matter the class. But those are resolved on a case-by-case basis.
So if you've already run the schedule at the high school for next year, is it...
Did I say that?
You did. Is it possible then to look and see if there are any classes that would fall below a threshold, or, we can sort of examine what that looks like and see if there's any classes that aren't going to run next year, that we need to reschedule those kids? I mean, if that's not possible, that's okay at this point, but I'm curious as to what...
Well, that's part of the scheduling process.
Yeah,
the first pass is the Power School running through and scheduling the students, and we did resolve the issues that led to some of the disasters we had at the beginning of the year in terms of the scheduling. And we saw that Power School was able to very efficiently schedule students, and then you move on, obviously, to the hand scheduling of, hey, the student wasn't able to get everything that they wanted. Looking at that, and, I think... I'll speak for Dr. Woods. I think he was pretty happy with how that first pass, the schedule went. And now, we certainly have a lot of X factors up in the air in terms of who's going to be teaching what, who's going to be where. But we are at a very healthy place with the high school schedule right now.
Okay. Good.
Great. Thank you.
Can I?
What else?
Can I ask some questions about what's up on the screen right now? With the... Option A with the pre-K to 5, how are we cutting the K to 6 teachers? What does that look like? That's a lot of teachers.
Those are actually flip-flopped between secondary and elementary since in the last couple of days, and since
You're
this
putting
was put together.
6.5.
I thought we talked about K in kindergarten and first grade not being cut. Staffing.
I don't know about staffing, but class size is what we talked about.
Class size will stay 15.
David, there's a commitment that class size in kindergarten and first grade is going to stay at 15. Last year we asked for that. We allocated the money for the hiring, and I appreciate the administration, you guys, committing to that. And Jim Clausen, I'll give you a thank you also. It was last year's curriculum committee meeting, and we were having a pretty vigorous conversation. And your comment was, if you want us to get our test scores up, get our class sizes down in kindergarten and first grade. And we all followed up on that. That carried a lot of weight, and that's when we presented that during the budget discussion last year. So if we stay committed to that, that's also going to send a signal to a lot of families that, when we started something, we're going to follow through on it. And from what I've learned, being the layman that I am, from what you guys have taught me, that's so foundational that I don't see how we mess with that.
And also, some of our reductions are through retirees. I mean, these aren't all bodies that we're eliminating. Some people, through attrition, we're just not going to fill the position.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask, because if the academy is going to open up kindergarten, first grade classrooms, because now they have 3 kindergarten, and if you're going to move it down to 15, there's going to be 4, 5, 6. But you're cutting that many teachers. I just wondered where the numbers were coming from.
Well, kindergarten is always an estimate.
Right.
Based it off of years prior. Right. But we're not changing the classroom size. So once again, depending on what the enrollment is, we'll determine the number of sections. So we may have to bring someone back. But most of the reductions are through the high school scheduling process.
So those numbers are flipped.
Yeah, I can't remember where we are. I've been trying to balance them for the last 2 days.
Can we get clarification on that in the next couple of days?
I'll have it tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
It's just I can't remember right now.
Okay. Can I ask
with the difference, between the two? I know there's more secondary teachers in that right now.
I have one more for the...
I want to ask a clarifying question, if I may. So to clarify, the class sizes will not be changing for kindergarten and first grade except at the academy, where they'll be getting smaller.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Because right now they're at, I think,
25,
20.
Yeah. So,
but once again, the academy was getting the short end on a lot of things that were happening.
Correct.
And part of this reconfiguration is trying to correct those inconsistencies.
Yes. Right. Which makes more sense.
Yeah.
The paraprofessionals, how is that number that high? What's that going to look like?
Well,
is that going to be?
Paris?
There's concern that it's going to 2 kids per para, and that did not
Well,
work well.
our paraprofessionals are based on special education students. So we look at what the students need currently. And so what we did was we looked at, all the students' needs who need a paraprofessional. That won't change. That stays status quo because that is an IEP team decision. And so that stays status quo. So then we look at different areas that might have classroom paraprofessional things in that nature. We might not need as many based on the reconfiguration. So that's where that comes in.
So it's still one-on-one.
Yeah, when a student needs a paraprofessional and it is within their IEP and it might not be all day, it all depends on their, what their needs are, that will not change. That's an IEP decision.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have one more question. It comes back to the teachers and the open enrollment. So does the open enrollment actually give us the ability to make sure we don't have half-full classrooms in multiple buildings? So
yes.
Okay. So that actually works in our favor to limit the number of teachers by making sure that all the classrooms are full in all those buildings. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It allows us greater control over the classroom size and making sure things are balanced.
Right. You don't have 3 half-full classrooms or half-full classroom in 3 buildings.
That's why one of the things we looked at was drawing lines around different areas.
Right.
Well, you may not have any second graders in one neighborhood. Right. So we wanted to get away from that and let it naturally develop over time. And we feel that over the next few years, if the board approves this, we will have a natural development community school, but not because you live on this side of the street or that side of the street. It will
Colin
develop.
Charday, she had to leave.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Question?
I just lost my train of thought. The K-8 building is expensive to run because of the certification of teachers. So teachers are certified K-6 and then 7 to 12. 7. Okay. So a kindergarten teacher could be moved up to like a 6th grade teacher depending on the year. Okay, that's why it's more expensive. Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
Any other questions? Trying to wrap my head around numbers. It's hard. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, once again, we have a week, so just email me or the team any questions you have, and we can answer. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, executive team, too.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for all the work.
Thank you.
Can I ask a school board logistical question?
Certainly.
So for the vote next week, are we being presented with
the tab
one option and then we say yay or nay?
The tab currently reads as option
voting
A.
on 3.
Correct. The tab currently reads as option A. Now, obviously, we have the option to amend. Should we choose to do that?
Okay.
There's, we have the normal procedural options as with any item for consideration, but the administration's recommendation, which is what our tabs are, is for option A.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So that will move us to registered speakers. Thank you for your patience to those of you who registered. Mrs. McCune. I'll remind speakers that they are asked to give their name and address, and 2 minutes is the allotted time.
Okay. My name is Cindy McCune, and I have 2 daughters in the Woodland Hills Junior Senior High. We recently had an issue with our special needs daughter being bullied and mocked at the school. I'm going to read this just so I can get through my 2 minutes, so bear with me. I'm speaking with you today to bring attention to an issue at the Junior Senior High. Recently, our daughter was a victim of bullying, and though the issue was dealt with, it brought about a thought I feel I need to share. People bully when they are in an awkward place where they maybe do not understand or relate to their victim. As a mother of a special needs child, I see it all the time. To counteract this, I have a hopeful solution that requires minimal funding and will alleviate the stressors that contribute to bullying of someone they do not understand or accept. This program helps in the awareness for our special needs students, and it can help in the aid of a no bullying environment. April is Autism Awareness Month, and the perfect time to offer such service to our student body is in April. An assembly featuring keynote speakers such as doctors, therapists, special needs teachers, people on the spectrum, and autism parents could kick off a flurry of educating others on autism awareness. The Lois Project would be an amazing and positive addition to our student body. The concept is based on having typical peers volunteer to guide a friend through their day with different abilities, help spread awareness to the student population as well as the general public. The program circulates around the idea of peer support, and it's been adapted in other schools with huge success. The program costs the district only a bit of time to provide an assembly. Other costs incurred could be offset by merely offering a bake sale or other small fundraiser, and the only cost really involved is the paperwork to have volunteers sign up. So I have a packet with the rundown of everything for you to look over, and I just think it would be a great thing to offer to our school, and I think it would really cut down on the bullying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can leave the packets with Mr. Gigliotti.
Okay.
And we'll make sure we get those.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Rachel Thompson.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Rachel Thompson. I live at 7113 Schroyer Avenue in Swissvale. I spoke to you last month about the need for recess standards, that there aren't any current recess standards within Woodland Hills, and that I found out that some students were receiving 15 minutes or less, sometimes none at all, especially in poor weather. And so I emailed you all, I believe. If I missed anybody, it's accidental oversight, please let me know. But I emailed you all with a proposal for what a recess policy could look like. And so just to cover some highlights, I believe that children in kindergarten through 5th grade should receive an hour total of recess that could be broken up into multiple chunks. It would be best to offer this before lunch, set some temperature standards, make sure that if the weather is poor, that they have time in the gym to receive exercise. There are some barriers currently to this. One is that perhaps we need additional fencing or things to make areas a little bit more safe for kids. It would probably help a lot and encourage teachers to want to do this more if they had recess facilitators. I know that is possibly a budgetary issue, but it is something worth considering. And just also implementing regular times for short cognitive breaks. There's plenty of evidence to suggest, to really show that having recess improves outcomes for children behaviorally, academically, and this is something that parents care a lot about. And it was the first question that I asked when I toured Edgewood Primary. So I'd really like to see you consider this. I know that an hour sounds long to a lot of you, but there is precedent for this, especially in, Mount Lebanon, for example, offers children 55 minutes per day. Environmental Charter School, in addition to their recess, offers over 80 outdoor events per classroom. And Finland, Japan have over an hour per day of breaks, and it is broken up into multiple chunks in those cases. Connecticut and Texas are considering these laws, so on and so forth. So I know that's aiming high, but I think it's really an opportunity as we look at realignment, rebranding the schools, and talking about how we are really innovating and looking at the whole child and doing long-term investments. So I hope that you'll consider this. If you think about forming a working group or anything like that, I'd love to be involved. And I'd love to just engage with you all more on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Clanagan. I don't see him. Let's see. Are you? I'm sorry. Did our student speakers arrive since I was here? Excellent. Thank you so much. If you want to come up and speak, welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaliyah. I am a sophomore at Woodland Hills High School, and I came to talk to you about the cries from our school from the social adjustment. As you know, our school family took a big loss and not guilty verdict. So in conclusion, as you know, we rioted, we protested, and we argued on our behalf and our eternal feelings. In that week, Antoine's mom, Mrs. Kennedy, came to give us a powerful suggestions to help her out instead of like walking out. And she said, just help get education and get to like the legislation like outfield to like help the community. And in a few weeks, we are scheduled to go to Harrisburg, April 30th, with the support of Miss Summer Lee, and she has provided an extra bus for us to go talk to the legislation personally about the law. And if you're not aware of the law is the Pennsylvania law that the police have a right to use deadly force when they feel a person is dangerous or carrying a weapon. And as a child, I'm 15, so me walking down the street, I wouldn't really think that I shouldn't offend somebody, but in their defense, I may offend them, and this is just per se. So the law basically gives them the right to shoot and commit manslaughter or homicide with the privilege and immunity to get off, and it's so easy for the police officer to hide behind the law with feelings such as excitement. I feel as a community we should help change and make the law so police can get held accounted for when criminal activity is taking place. I feel like we need to learn our rights, and we should learn their rights or their laws, because if we don't know what they can't do to us, we don't know how to report the issue, and we don't know how to make it safe as a community and as children, because every day, especially in the communities being so hot, like high crime, we don't know what we can really do to the police and how to prevent it. So, hold on. And there are so much controversy about police brutality, but no one really talks about how to prevent it. We just try to change it and just really never take no baby steps. Because I feel like I should not have to look over my shoulder and feel like I could be harmed, because I fight every day with adversity against the world. It's meaning that I do go to Woodland Hills High School, and we are on the news every day. And I feel like we should create an unbreakable army and really take this to Harrisburg and get this law changed to make it more safer just for everybody, not even just for the Woodland Hills community. Because I feel as a biracial individual, I have to teach my younger siblings on what and what not to do, and how not to offend a police officer, so they can come back in one piece. And this is just anybody. This is not just towards black people, even though we are severely targeted. And ethnicity is not on a bullet at all. And things that go on in our school isn't like any other high school at all, as you all know. We deal with a lot of trauma, but I feel like we are so different because we come every day and we make an effort to move forward, but the average person, have I seen from personal experiences, would just give up. And I feel like that makes us stand out from anybody. And in the halls, we have raw, unapologetic talent. And I feel like the teachers come every day and help us out. And I would like to thank you guys for hiring these very, very, very great teachers to help support us. And even though sometimes we do fall short, Dr. Woods do also remind us every day in school to be better than what we are yesterday and continue forward. And he has made things such as Terrific Tuesdays, Wolverine Work Wednesdays to make it more fun. Because in the hallways we have our own version of a Gabby Douglas, we have a Kobe Bryant, we have a Chris Brown. We just have so much talent inside the schools that y'all help support. And our big happy family, we do support each other also. And I do want to apologize on behalf of the students on our disruptive behavior and embarrassing behavior to the press, because that is not the image we uphold inside the school. And I'm sorry that we fall short sometimes, but we are working every day. And every day we do talk. We do have meetings and programs after school. We do donate our time to come out and try to give you guys ideas so we can make just the children feel more involved and make it more of a village and not try to disrupt the village. And I understand this will be have to have review, but I just really want you to just consider like learning like the procedures of a police officer and making sure that our laws are in the curriculum, because if we're not taught when we're young, by the time we are graduated, this will be far out of our minds, and we think it's not going to happen to us, but until it happens again. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for being here. Okay. Mr. Harris, that'll move us to board matters.
Okay. 2.1, board communication.
This is a record. This is really an advisory item for the record to note that we did send thank yous to those who came to the school on March 25th at the request of Dr. Woods, and to note that we had applications for the open board seats. Any questions on that? Okay. 2.2.
Okay. We seek approval of blank to fill the unexpired term of Miss Ava Johnson on the Board of School Directors.
The board did conduct interviews this evening. They were publicly advertised and held at 5 p.m. We interviewed 3 candidates for that position, and we'll deliberate and consider candidates next week. Any questions on that? Okay. Seeing none. 2.3.
Okay, board matters 2.3, second and final reading of revised policy 115, career and technical education. You will see bulleted now, relevant facts there. We kind of highlight what changes were done. Child abuse requirements, arrest or conviction reporting requirements, and definition of authority.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.4.
Okay, 2.4, second and final reading of revised policy 338, sabbatical leave.
Any questions? 2.5.
Okay, board matters 2.5, second and final reading of revised policy 339, uncompensated leave.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.6.
Okay, board matters 2.6, third and final reading of revised policy 204, attendance.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.7.
Okay, 2.7, third and final reading of revised policy 227, controlled substances and paraphernalia.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.8.
2.8, third and final reading of revised policy 317, conduct disciplinary procedures.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.9.
2.9, first reading of revised policy 707, facilities rental.
Any questions? Seeing none. I imagine we'll have some discussion on that at some point. But we'll move to 2.10 for now.
2.10, we seek approval to apply for a Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Fund 50% matching grant up to $750,000 max to make permanent improvements to the Carnegie Free Library of Swissvale.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.11.
2.11, we seek approval of Resolution 540-19, ensuring the undistributed use of the facility as a public library for 50 years or useful life of the project as required by the Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Grant.
Any questions? Seeing none. 2.12.
2.12, we seek approval of Resolution 539-19, Woodland Hills School District 2019 National Library Week, April 7th through the 13th, 2019.
These are the resolutions that were presented earlier, but we will ratify those next week.
I want to go back to 2.11. The solicitor is working on the resolution.
Very good.
Yeah, it's not attached yet, but it will be read next week.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on 2.12? Okay. That will move us into Section 5, Special Education.
Okay, Special Education 5.1, approval for a letter of agreement with the day school at the Children's Institute for the 2019-2020 school year. Total annual cost, $65,100.
Any questions? Seeing none. It's 5.2.
5.2, approval to ratify for tuition agreement with New Story from March 11, 2019 through June 5, 2019. Total cost is $18,600.
Any questions? Seeing none. 5.3.
5.3, approval for the purchase of on-site training for Ames Web Plus at a cost of $7,000.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing none.
5.4, approval to ratify for tuition agreement with News Story from April 8, 2019 through June 5, 2019. Total cost is $12,710.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to 7, personnel, 7.1.
7.1, personnel. 7.1, Section B, authorization for retirement and resignation. Section D, authorization for non-professional. Section F, authorization for EDR mentor actions. Section G, authorization for miscellaneous.
Questions on this will require executive session. Any need to go into executive session at this time? Okay. Seeing none, Section 8, technology and safety, 8.1.
8.1, we seek approval for a one-year renewal for support coverage for our VMware servers at a cost of $7,482 from the General Fund 10.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, 8.2.
8.2, we seek approval to join the IU13 Microsoft Campus Consortium with an annual cost of $37,126.20. This is a 5-year agreement. Annual fee not to increase over this 5-year term. Funding from General Fund 10.
Any questions? Seeing none, 8.3.
8.3, we seek approval for an annual subscription to Snap Health Center at a cost of $5,930.
Any questions? Seeing none, 8.4.
8.4, we seek approval to renew support on the data center's compelling disk storage system at a cost of $9,090.66 from General Fund 10.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to Section 11, buildings and grounds, 11.1.
11.1, we seek approval of the intermediate school mobile classroom lease with Williams Scotsman through June 18, 2020 for $1,651.50 per month from the General Fund 10.
Any questions?
I'm assuming that's a budgeted item. That's something we had before.
We have,
Yeah, that's the one we're paying for. Now what we're doing is the buildings will be in use until the end of next school year, so we have to
extend that.
extend it. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not for any additional trailers
this
that
is what we already have.
because we talked about that before. Okay, thank you.
Continue on.
any other questions? Okay, 11.2.
11.2, we seek approval of PCO number 17 from Pitt Electric totaling $53,393.30 for the installation of cameras at Dixon School from Capital Project Fund 39. The funds are currently budgeted under soft costs.
Any questions? Just so that I'm clear, this is a shift of these funds?
Shift of funds from soft cost to construction
into construction costs? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. 11.3.
11.3, we seek approval of the pre-construction fee performance guarantee payment metric from Reynolds Construction, LLC.
Any questions on this? Okay.
11.4, we seek approval to dispose of surplus equipment and supplies as attached.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, 11.5.
11.5, we seek approval for Edgewood Elementary roof repairs.
Any
This
questions?
would come from capital reserve.
Okay,
It's
thank
not
you.
mentioned.
If we could add that to the tab, I would appreciate it. It's in the relevant
says-
facts
it
portion.
says in the
Yeah,
description.
It is. It's in the description. It is.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, 11.6.
11.6, we seek approval for the use of facilities by outside organizations for the 2018-19 school year.
Any questions?
Yeah, I had a question about so where is this? So the intermediate field that's being reserved from July through October. Do we know if that field is going to be is there going to be any need for that field for our high school sports teams if the high school facilities are not being used, or I'm not, so for instance, the soccer field's going to be off limits until construction is done. Right? Do you know if that field is going to be needed for any of the high school sports teams since that field's not going to be available?
Right now, the athletic department's already blocked certain areas of the intermediate, so we're actually currently working with them to allow other people to use the fields as well.
Okay, because I was going to say, because they blocked it off for the entire time that those fields at the high school are not going to be accessible, right?
Right.
So,
correct.
All right, so but you guys, you're working on that. Okay.
Yes.
And then the other question I had is, so I thought we had discussed not having midget football use the concession stands and the locker rooms.
Right.
Actually, I take that back. We didn't talk about the locker rooms, right? But why are we giving them access to the locker rooms and the concession stand?
We should not.
We
should not be.
Well, that's what's written on here, though.
Okay. So
we have to remove the locker rooms.
Well, this is the first. I mean, I wasn't aware that they used locker rooms before. I never noticed it before or whatever. But
Well,
I just don't think that an outside organization would have access to the locker rooms and the concession stand.
Right. They used the visitor locker room last year. That's what they used. That was it. And they used the concession stand. We did discuss though not to allow them to use the locker room, just to open up the 2 restrooms. And if they were going to sell anything, they would have to provide their own tables and their grills and stuff like that instead of using the concession stand. So I could remove those items and reach out to them and let them know that.
Okay. Any other questions on the outside use? Okay.
Great, thank you.
Seeing none.
11.7, we seek approval for amendment number 4 with Reynolds Energy Services for the high school Phase 1 project totaling $140,000 through the Capital Projects Fund 39.
Any questions?
This is another move from soft cost to construction cost of the dollars are not going to affect the project. It's not additional. It's just moving from soft cost to construction cost. And if there are any funds not used, they will be moved back to soft cost once the...
Okay. Is this asbestos that we didn't know was there? Is this a new...
No, this is what we know is there.
This is, okay.
Removing it under Phase 1.
Okay.
And what this does is instead of us having to go out and find a company and bid, they've assumed that they can take care of all that. And, Reynolds will take care of that part of the Giza.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Section 14, school finance.
School finance 14.1, we seek ratification of the bill list for invoices paid after the March 2019 legislative meeting.
Any questions on the ratification list?
Yeah. Can somebody explain to me what the Pelican program is through the Heritage Foundation?
Which one is that?
Right here.
15,003?
Yeah.
That's their pre-K classroom.
Okay.
That they're operating under the grant. And we're paying them monthly there, or 1/10 over 10 months of their $153,000 part of the grant.
That was a partnership we had.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions on ratification? Okay. Seeing none. 14.2.
Okay, 14.2, we seek approval of the April 2019 bill list.
Any question on the bills? Seeing none. 14.3.
14.3, we seek approval of the investment reports for March 2019.
Any questions on the investments? Okay. Seeing none. 14.4.
14.4, we seek the acceptance of the March 2019 fund reports and student activity reports for informational purposes.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing none. Section 15, superintendent.
15.1, we seek approval of the Woodland Hills School District Realignment Plan Option A.
Any other questions on this? Okay. Is there any old business? Any new business?
I'd like to make a comment. If Miss Thompson's still here, you have an ally on the recess thing. I think the kids should get more than an hour. Can't imagine sitting still that long at that age.
And I have to say thank you to Superintendent Harris for the tips that you made publicly to this. Just look forward to working on all the details with everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Any other new business? Okay. Seeing none, normally we would read committee reports at this point. With the board's indulgence, I will just ask if anyone has anything they want to highlight from committees last month. I think we've sort of gone through committees already. Because a lot of the talk was realignment talk last month. I will say that. And so with the board's indulgence, we will skip reports. Yes.
I think I just want to reiterate that there's a budget workshop tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's
Yes.
highlighted.
I believe, yes. It's at 5 o'clock, Mike? 5 o'clock. Sorry, Mr. Gigliotti. 5 o'clock in this building, correct?
In this building.
Yes, okay. So there is a public budget workshop tomorrow evening from 5 until 7, and that will be here. Okay.
And we've asked if that can be on.
Yes, we're going to have it recorded and also make it public. We'll get the PowerPoint out as well. Make sure that video is up on the website and all of those things. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other reports to highlight? Okay. Seeing none, that moves us to public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board at this time? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Strasbach, second by Mr. Hanchett. All in favor? Thank you all. See you next week.